morning, Bardstown and Nelson County, and welcome to Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford were with you today here in the WBRT studio on South 3rd Street. A very rainy Wednesday morning. I guess April showers hopefully will bring May flowers.
Well, the ones that the cold weather hadn't killed.
Well, basically, to me, at my house, the April showers bring lots of early weeds. So anyway, I've got to get some mowing done when it dries up, but I think most of it's going to be weeds that I mow for this first mowing. Well, Margie, I was just a quick note. I know I wasn't with you last week. My wife and I went up to Washington, D.C. to visit our daughter.
Yes, wonderful.
And like I told you before the show, I stopped and told Joe Biden all the things he was doing wrong.
Oh, I'm sure he listened to you very patiently.
No, actually, we didn't get that close to the White House. I think we were 3 blocks away. We were at a bus stop. But and I could see the top of the White House from that. But I will tell you, just being on the National Mall and just being there and seeing the Capitol building on one end and the Washington Monument on the other, after you've seen this place on television for 60 years, it's kind of breathtaking.
It is amazing.
And then you've got the museums, the Smithsonian behind you, and the National Gallery of Art. I could talk the whole show about that, but I'm not the guest today.
No, you're not.
Yeah, we have Margie and I are continuing our series of candidate interviews here on Bradford and Brooks, and our guest today in the studio is Mr. David Call. And David Call is a Democrat seeking the nomination for 3rd District Magistrate. Good morning, David.
How you doing?
Doing good, and glad to have you in. And you ran 4 years ago?
Yes, sir.
All right, and I remember our conversation back then. Well, David, tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, because I'm sure that you're well known in your magistrate district. But to tell us a little bit, listeners, a little bit about you and what you bring to the table as a candidate for magistrate.
Well, I'm pretty well known in District 3, and what's so funny about it is that I've probably had farm machinery on 75% of the roads. And I mean, it's in a lifetime, and we've cut hay over where they've, been building buildings and everything else, and that's really funny. But I have 4 children. My oldest boy, he's a over-the-road driver. I have a daughter at the post office, and my 2 twin boys has a feed store across from Mammy's.
Right, and well, I tell you, God bless your son, the over-the-road truck driver, because we need as many of those guys as we can get.
Yeah, he's over the road, and it's a hard job. I've been over the road, and but like I said, I lived in this county my whole life, and I've probably lived within 10 miles from where I was born to where I live right now, maybe 15 miles, because my dad and mom, and my dad and mom, they always taught us to treat people the way we want to be treated.
Right.
And they were married for 73 years. That's a long time.
Yes, it is.
David, you were talking about earlier being in Washington. Well, David, you were in Washington, too.
You spent quite a bit of time in Washington.
Yeah, tell us how that came about.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny sitting there listening to you talking about the White House. I've had 2 meetings inside the White House, but I worked with other farmers. It wasn't just me. It was a nationwide and countywide, and we worked on agriculture issues and with the economy the way it was, we felt like we had to do something. And when this is what's funny too, when I was about 18 years old, I was sitting on the back of a pickup truck, and there was 3 or 4 young guys there with me, and we was complaining about farm prices. And they said, well, just David, what are you going to do about it? I said, someday I'm going to Washington. So in the 80s, I got involved with a national farm federation, and I was lucky enough to be chosen to go to the White House, and we went back and forth probably 5 to 7 times over a period of 9 years. Each time we'd go back 5 to 7 years each year. So I've made about 35, 40 trips up there. And it's amazing to be in the White House. You know, you was talking about seeing it. I mean,
Yeah.
I was actually sitting in the White House, and you know, it's interesting. It's fun.
Right. And tell us about your educational background.
And I've got a degree in agriculture, animal science from the University of Kentucky. I've got I think a minor in agriculture marketing, and I've got about 20 hours of education. And I had a real good advisor in the very beginning. He said, David, he said, now when you go to college and you start getting everything out of the way, don't waste any time on electives. So he rallied me in to take good electives, so I didn't waste any time. And I think, but it was interesting. I've had an interesting life.
It's interesting. I had the same advice from my advisor, and that's why I ended up with 2 majors.
Right.
I ended up with a major in newspaper writing and also political science.
Right.
When I finished up, because he told me don't waste time on majors you don't need,
Yes,
or
electives
you don't
That's
need.
what I was told also, and I got some very good advice.
That was.
And I didn't live at UK. I got up the last 2 years, me and a friend and a couple other ladies in town, I communicated back and forth to UK. I got up every morning at 3 o'clock and milked cows, and then went to UK and come home.
Well, I'll tell you, the world of dairy farming sure has changed over the last 25, 30 years.
Yes, sir. Bad. Bad. It's all gone agribusiness. And, people think gas prices is high. Just wait to the end of this year and see what food prices do. I'm afraid it's going to get serious. But one thing we did when we was working on agriculture issues, we always kept the consumer in mind. And we had consumer groups working with us because we knew we couldn't get any words without having the consumer behind us. So they represented us, we represented them, and basically that's the way I see the magistrate race. You're out here, if you're lucky enough to get elected, you're supposed to represent your district and then work for the county.
Work for the good of the county. Right?
And what people's got to remember, this is about local issues and only local issues. We can do nothing on a federal, we can do nothing on the state. Unless I'm wrong.
Right.
But people has to remember this is about local issues.
Right.
And I've got the experience and I think I've got the quality to represent District 3.
Right.
What do you now? It's interesting you talk about farm machinery out on the roads. Well, I would tell you that my old tractor, you don't really get to know the roads until you're running them at about 12 miles an hour.
Yes.
And then you really get a feel for what kind of condition your roads are in when you're not running 60 miles an hour. So you probably have a good experience on the condition of the roads in the district.
Right, good experience. And I'm on the road on a daily basis now because all I do is help the boys take care of the cattle. They feed quite a few cattle, and that's what I do. I hope they don't fire me, but I don't think they will.
Speaking of blacktop, of course, the way it works right now is the magistrates, they take some of the occupational tax money, and that's divided among the districts for road paving projects. Does that seem equitable to you? And I think at one year, I know they voted to go by the mileage.
Right.
That the smaller, and I think the 3rd district has the least mileage in roads. District
3 has 51 miles in blacktop roads.
Right.
The largest is District 4, and they have 77.
Yeah. But is that the current system? Do you think that's fair, or do you think it ought to be looked at? Because sometimes the numbers of miles doesn't matter; it's the condition of the road and the traffic you got on it.
Well, the thing about it is that's when you have to work with the other magistrates and try to show them your problem. You switch off here, we switch off there. But I think it's a lot to do with communication in the court. And there's 3 words that I will take to physical court if I'm elected. That's accountability, communication, and don't forget common sense.
Well, I tell you that the communication is so important because you're representing your district and also the county.
Right.
And that your constituents are going to be on you about, well, can we do something about this issue or that issue? And all the magistrates have their constituents that with whatever issues those are. Let's see here, look at my list. Looking forward, what are the three biggest challenges for the county look in the future? And you come from a great ag background. What about, I don't know that there's challenges for the ag community that a lot of people don't know. And is there something that county government, do you think, should do or should consider to help those who are still in farming?
Well, the situation with farming is due to the fact that land values and property taxes. And what they have to do and what bothers me is this. I think we're living in a time, and you might agree with me, both of y'all might agree with me. Do we want quality or do we want quantity? And I think that's a very important thing for us to be looking at. And the infrastructure with the road systems, they talk about the short bypass,
Right.
which I guess that's feasible and going to happen at some date. But the thing about it is, you can't keep destroying farmland.
Right.
You can't do it. We need a plan. And you remember back in the medieval days, they had colleges built. They had small groups of houses built. And it wouldn't surprise me when Ford comes to Glendale that with the population changing the way it is, with all the immigrants coming in, that they don't have individual housing over there to take care of that. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. But instead of having 10-acre yards, which I know a lot of people has it, I believe in recycling. And we can go in here in some of these places and recycle some of these lots and build a different type house.
Right.
But the day of the young people wanting a big nice tract of land, I believe is gone. And unless they're from very rich parents.
Well, like I said, I was in D.C. last week, and it's a very different lifestyle up there because they have 12 and 15-story apartment buildings in their residential area.
Right.
Now you have single family homes, but they are on very tight lots.
Right.
Some of them don't even have driveways. But I mean, they're nice homes, but everything's very, very compact.
Right.
You don't. You would probably have to drive to Maryland to see somebody with a 7-acre tract of land. But I think that's a valid point because every bypass, all these projects, we're out my way, out north of town, there's property being developed, some farmland, and I hate, you just hate to see that. I mean, it's I guess it's inevitable.
It's coming. It's coming.
But you just hate to see farmland turned into housing. But we also need housing.
Right.
So do we need to look at housing from a different perspective?
I think so. I think we need to look at smaller packages for smaller families.
Right.
That as they advance with their families, maybe they can look at something else. But the way the economy is right now, the way I look at it, the only way you can do anything about this economy, number one, is energy prices, and number two is with the inflation, is to quit buying. Let a surplus build up where people, that it's there. But inflation, it's eating up people's wallets. A lot of people's living from week to week, and I just want to see people do good. And with the younger generation coming on, I think they need to look at advice from the older people and take it to heart because, they can look up anything they want to on a computer or on their phone, but they do not realize what it took to put it in there.
Right.
It might take 5 years to put something in that computer. And, and it's just I hate to see waste. And I think there's lots in this county, lots in this city that can be recycled. And, someday something's going to happen down here at Old Barstown Mills. Who knows what's going to happen to that old place?
Right.
They talk about a parking lot. They're talking about this. But with the housing, the situation it is, that's a number one key. But, when they take this short bypass out, that's going to take some people out of that lots out there, too, at the trailer court.
Right.
So, it's...
Where do we put them?
But it needs to be smart thinking. You know, what we need to do right now is have a comprehensive plan 20 years out. Right now, 20 years.
Well, I think they're actually working on redoing that comprehensive plan to kind of address that. You know,
I think it should have been addressed a little bit sooner.
Well, I think it gets up. It usually gets updated periodically.
Right.
But you know, the comprehensive plan can't. You know, and if you look at it, you know, from 20 years ago, they do suggest having clusters of housing, you know, in different communities and not spread everywhere. But they, of course, it's just suggestion, you know, and that's. And they didn't anticipate what would happen out Deatsville when they built Corman's Crossing and ran that sewer line out there, and that just exploded development out 245.
And you know, it's easy to sit here and criticize when you're not on the end making the decisions.
Right.
But if I am elected as magistrate, I want to take things to heart, and I can do that with the voters.
David, the lack of sanitary sewers is preventing housing growth in the county. So what do you think the county government could do to promote more housing?
That's a tough question. It just gets back to what we was talking about.
Yeah.
It's something I'd have to really look into because I wouldn't want to say something and be wrong. And I know that they're putting in pipe systems different places in the county, but you know, that's something I'd have to check into a little bit more.
David, there's been lots of discussion over the years about having a indoor sports facility with like an indoor pool, which people seem to want, but there's always a problem of not just paying for it, building it, but having money to pay for it, pay its way. If fiscal court was approached with a project like that, would that be something you would consider?
I will listen to anything, but let me tell you, as long as it doesn't take taxpayers' money, if you can get donations on it, what I like to see is something like a community center. And you know, just like take Boston down for example, you know, they feel like they're an orphan of this district.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a small little district. They got a real nice barber shop down there, and you know, but it hadn't changed over the years. The people don't want a great big change, but I know they want the internet there at the community center and things like that to look at. But it's just things like that that I'm interested in.
Do you feel like that the representation on fiscal court or just the needs of the district have been represented fairly well, or you know, in the past?
You know, like I can say, I can sit here and criticize, which is easy.
Right.
But I don't feel like the Boston area has been represented. But you know, some parts has, some part hasn't. But a lot of those people down there don't want a big change, but there's needs that they do need. And I know I had a guy ask me about the sanitation situation down there with septic tanks and stuff. But I don't know how you can go in and make a great big change without a big value putting on people, taxpayers.
Right.
And if we lose this bourbon tax, we're you know, and they're talking about a 3.4% increase on property tax. You know, I don't see how you're going to do it. $1, you know, to me, $1 bill. You ought to just burn them all. Replace the $1 bill with a $2 bill, and then start taxing $2 bill because the $1 bill is already gone. And so I don't know. You know, I think we're going to have to be wise on spending money because I think that we're in for some pretty difficult times on people making a living.
Right. The county government, well, actually, city and county governments have been involved over the years with creating industrial park areas to sell. And I know years ago when the county bought that property where the county's industrial park is, there was a lot of doubt that they would ever attract business to fill that thing up or to sell the property. And they've done well. But they had to invest a lot of money to get the infrastructure in place, water and natural gas. Is that sort of project, is that something you think county government belongs in, and it has to do for the, to bring business and industry here?
Well, when it comes to purchasing property for another industrial park, say in District 3, I don't see how that's even feasible, because a lot of that farmland out there is tied up in the families to where I don't think they would ever sell.
Right.
And the rock quarry has a lot of land out there that they'll probably use it for rocks and stuff. But what I like to see some corporate headquarters come to Bardstown. Then that's big money right there.
Yeah. And
And you got Heaven Hill coming, out here where they're at, but that's not going. They won't employ a lot of people the way automation is. And it's Bardstown, and something else. We eat breakfast over at Mammy's every morning, and the tourist that comes in there, we talk to every one of them, cutting up with them, and it gets back. I ask tourists all the time. I said, do we need to worry about quality or quantity? And you know what they tell me? He said, don't you all lose what you got. And that's just sitting there talking to somebody. You know what I mean? It's just they don't want to see all this urbanization. They come to Bardstown because we're a tourist town,
Right.
and I think we need to remain something like that.
Well, that's a great point, David, because some of the most interesting conversations I've ever had is asking tourists, people who are visiting here, looking at the town from their perspective,
Right.
as somebody who's never seen it before.
Right.
And you learn a lot about what people think, and because we grown up here.
Yes.
When I was a kid walking from Maple Hill downtown, I thought every town in Kentucky had a big old cathedral and their own version of the Talbot Tavern, and I didn't think we were anything special or unique.
We are.
Yeah, but we really are. But when you're born and raised here, you don't really. It's just part of your landscape.
And when I'm talking to the tourists and stuff, I ask them, I say, where did you learn about Bardstown at? And they give you every reason on earth. How they look up everything, but like it's a ghost town, it's a this, it's that, and people's interested in Nelson County. And you know what the funny part is? A lot of people, when they say, when I retire, I'd like to move down here.
And I know a number of people who have done just exactly that.
That has moved here.
Yeah.
And you have to have taxes, but I just think we need to tighten up on money. And I don't want to say too much about that because I might offend somebody on something. But we've got I think we need to be more accountable with money. I think we need to have more eyes on money.
Right. Well, that leads me into my next question, David. The Dean Watts has mentioned this several times in the last year or so, that a future fiscal court, that there's not, that with the rising cost of everything, like with EMS in the jail, and the county subsidizes those pretty heavily right now, but as costs go up, the county's occupational tax is capped. They can't increase it easily. And so at some point, he's warned that you're going to have to think about more revenue, which basically is either, raising taxes or coming up with a new fee, which is a tax, What are your thoughts on that? You said you want to be accountable, but at what, how do you deal with inevitable, the prices are going to continue going up.
Right.
And so, but you've got to, how do you move forward without gouging people?
Well, at some point or time, we're going to have to slow up and quit spending money. I mean, we're going to have to. If you don't have it, you're not going to spend it. But let me throw this out at you, and you may think I'm coming out of Twilight Zone. It doesn't matter, but I just want to throw this at you. With automation taking the place of people, and since you brought up the occupational tax, I'm going to bring up what I've got on my mind. I say that you may be looking at taxing automation. And by that is you go to Kroger's, they got 15 lanes down through there. They got 2 people there working sometimes, rest of them self-checkouts.
Right.
If there's 15 people there, if 13 people has been displaced due to automation, I say put the occupational tax on that machine. If it's 13, you take 13 times 75 or whatever. That's the way I think. Now that may be out of Twilight Zone to you, but I don't know.
I've never
That's
thought about that.
interesting. I've never heard that.
Well,
Yeah.
that's how I think. I got all kinds of ideas in my head. but I, you can't keep taxing. You can't keep taxing people because, just like you said, inflation is killing us.
Well, not only that, but counties and states give a lot of preferences to bringing in companies and,
Right.
and setting up these.
Right.
And so,
The companies
but,
may have.
but yet not employing the people to do those
Right,
things. So,
right. And you may be looking at the companies coming up with more money, and which and I want to see American companies come. I want to see union jobs come. I want to see made in America, made in Nelson County, and something else. If we had a factory here that was doing things like it, I think it'd be cool to put it on there, made in Nelson County.
it would be.
I think so. And do you remember? You was talking about dairies a while ago. Do you remember a long time ago the little real seal?
Yeah.
Okay. I was in on getting that done with SUDA. That's when they took, I think it was 25 cents out of dairy farmers, 15 cents out of dairy farmers' checks to pay for that. And these people would come up from Atlanta, Georgia, and we'd have meetings, and it got to where they were taking me outside before the meeting started to ask me what I was going to ask in the meeting. And I said, you just wait and see, because I don't represent you. I represent the 186 dairy farmers that put me here.
Right.
And that's just the way I'll do the voters. If they elect me, I will represent them. But, and I just tell them, I say, you just wait and see. Wait and see what I ask you in there. But I think there needs to be more questions asked. And I'm just old school. I've got to shake hands with people and talk to them. And when you get out here giving out cards and stuff, or talking to people, you run into a lot of smart people. Voters are smart. Taxpayers are smart, and taxpayers know that they want to keep more money in their pocket. And you go talking about taxes. I think I'm against taxes unless they're very smart taxes.
Right.
And I still don't know where a smart tax is going to come from because of inflation.
Right.
Well, we do depend on that to provide the services that people want.
Right.
So saying you're against taxes, all taxes, is saying you don't want those services.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we have to be smarter with the money. We have to have those. We have to have ambulances and police. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that we're going to have to tighten up our reins and just maybe recheck where the money's going. And something else, I was reading in the Standard where 200 of the calls that EMS made, and you correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I know where you're going.
They said that when we got there, all they wanted to do was talk to us. Did you read that in the paper? Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
And I remember at one time, if you abused the system, you was penalized.
Right.
And I think we need to look at that.
Well, and the EMS has a lot of calls every month for lift assist. Somebody fell down, and they would call just to get them up, help get them up off the floor. And I mean that's, but they can't charge anything.
No, not only that they can't, but a lot of it they can't.
Yeah.
The ambulance goes up and down that road during the summertime. I don't know how many times, and they'll cut off the siren, they'll ease back out. I don't know what's going on down there, but. But if you're abusing the system, you ought to be penalized. And I think that would stop a lot of expenses going out on.
Right. I think one of the issues I think they always run into is trying to collect.
Right.
Because you've got a segment of the population who really can't afford a lot of money to pay. But every time that ambulance leaves the station, there's costs involved.
And there's a big difference. When I was raised up, there's a big difference between wants and needs too.
Right.
So we have to get our wants in priority.
Well, and back then, if you fail, you could get your neighbor and come over.
Right.
But it's different times now, and we don't really depend on the guy next to us if we need a hand.
And communication's the biggest thing. But if I do win the election in November, I'm going to keep my tag on the back of my Tahoe and my telephone number to let people know that I'm gonna have it on there every day. To where if I'm parked over here, they can come over. Hey, are you the magistrate out there in District 3? I want to talk to you. You know, that would be my communication to a lot of people like that. But you know, it's getting back to inflation. It's killing everything.
Mm-hmm. You know, getting back to you're talking about people falling and they're calling 911 for assistance and having had relatives in that position where nobody could get them
Right,
up.
that's different.
Then might there be a service where you could do just that, not have the whole unit go out?
Yes, I think it could be a cheaper service. I mean, I was heading to Louisville one day in a tractor trailer. My mom called me. She was hysterical because my dad fell against the wall, and she couldn't get him up. So first thing I did, I said, "Mom, just sit tight. I'm calling 911," and that's what happened. So I've had to do it. I know what you're talking about. That's very important. But you know, I think we can do things like what you just said maybe at a different route. But you know, everybody needs the ambulance service, but it's just I think some of it's abused.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think if you had a talk with EMS Director Joe Pruitt, I think he would confirm that. I'm not speaking for Joe, but I think they would probably agree that there's some people that abuse.
Well, it's the same with the police force. You know, people calls and it's nothing ever happened.
Well, David, in the last year or so, the animal shelter out here at the fairgrounds, the Nelson County Humane Society has withdrawn. They'd staffed it for years, and the county had a contract where they managed, the shelter and the adoptions and everything. Well, with COVID, they've had trouble getting volunteers, and of course everybody has, and so anyway, they let fiscal court know they wanted to withdraw, and so now the county's taken over the operation and is funding it. Now, as far as a budget goes, it's not a huge cost to the county, but it is another expense to the county to operate that. But you're kind of in a position where you have to have animal control,
right?
But is it fair for the county? Well, counties everywhere have to do it,
right.
And you want it done well. You don't want, and we've all seen the stories on TV of other counties where they disposed of pets with a .22, and that's not a humane way to treat anybody. I don't know. Is it just one of those costs that the county you think has to really a service you have to provide?
Well, it's a service we need, but it goes back to what I said a while ago. Pet owners need to be more accountable too. Mm-hmm. They don't, when you have one or two dogs, you don't need 8 or 10.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And if they put a little bit more accountability back on that, and something else, since you mentioned that, and I've been thinking about this a little bit, especially with landfill. Mm-hmm. I don't know why you couldn't get maybe FFA or something involved in something like that. Let some kids go out there and work and give them some credit hours and let them go out there and work. That could come back to your high schools. Mm-hmm. That's just something to think about. But
well, I'll tell you a program that only gets mentioned when like the Beef Cattle Association donates some money to fiscal court is the dead animal removal program. Mm-hmm. And that's a big asset for our farm community.
But I believe Farm Bureau pays for that, don't they?
Yeah. They pay a significant part of it.
Yeah, we use it. Yeah. We've used it before.
Right. But the county's been involved in that for a long time. I mean, it's really a matter of trying to keep. If you didn't have it, what would you do with farm animals? Push them off into a sinkhole or something.
Right.
So
and see, that kind of goes back to what you were saying a while ago about. I think you mentioned something about a sports center a while ago.
Yeah.
If we're looking at money at there or whichever way that would come about, we may need some donations in on something like that at animal shelter, which I know they have animal drives and all that kind of stuff to raise money, but it's I know it's a tough issue, but people just, a lot of people just got too many animals that if they're not making an income off of them, a lot of people just has too many and they need to be accountable for them.
Well, David, and we had talked before the show about, your race especially is local. Mm-hmm. And I think I've heard arguments that, political party matters less. It's more about what the candidate brings to the table and what they can do for the district. Just from your perspective, would you say political party means a lot in this race, or to me it seems more about the person and what they can do?
Well, it should be that way, but with things going the way they are, if there's not a big change, a lot of people's going to go in this November and hit the R. Mm-hmm. But this being about local issues, you need to know all you can about your candidate. And another thing, all these signs, goes up and down the road, which I think I've got out 38 or something like that. I wish they would eliminate signs down to about 5 or 10 and have 4 or 5 meetings during all this to where people can come in and you're sitting right there and you're drilled right on the spot.
Right.
I would rather see that than anything else, but this is about local issues. It's like I said, I've got a lot of experience. I've been over all the roads, just about 75% of them are farm equipment. Mm-hmm. But it's just about local issues and who you feel comfortable with and who do you think is going to do a good job and who's got the qualities. And I think I've got it.
All right. So specifically, why vote for David Call for magistrate?
Well, number one, I'm a people person. Mm-hmm. Number two, if you've got a problem, I want to see that it gets taken care of. I know there was some problems down around Boston about ditches. There was one lady was telling me that every time it comes a hard rain, the tubes underneath the bridges or it backs up on her. She was complaining about that. But you're driving out in the county and stuff, and if I am elected, if some guy's out there working in his garden, I'm going to stop and ask him. I'm going to say, hey, how's things going? I'm going to keep a big line of communication. I think it's the biggest asset I got. And I like talking to people and I like solving problems.
Is there any changes to fiscal court, say the meeting times or that you would, of course, you're a magistrate, not judge executive, but any changes you think you would like to see?
I like to see maybe a couple of night meetings, afternoon meetings, but instead of having a physical court here in the courthouse, I'd like to have it maybe at the community center in Boston, or Cox's Creek in one of the schools. Let people come to you instead of us sitting up here and debating everything or whatever. But I like to see things like that happen. I like to see the communities get more involved in your local politics.
Right.
Instead of sitting by, it doesn't do any good to sit back and complain. If you're going to be a complainer, and if you don't vote, don't complain, number one, but just get involved. I've been involved all my life in something. And kids need to get involved. And when they talk about this sports center, like I said, I like to see a community center. Take one of these old buildings, turn it into a community center, have kids coming there with elderly people coming in there, learning something from them, learn a trade from them. There's enough ball fields and everything else around here and gyms, and we got the school systems. Make that the part of it that they need to have.
All right. Well, David, we need to got some commercial messages to get in, then we'll come back and wrap up.
All right,
okay?
Thank you.
All right. You're listening to Bradford and Brooks and our very special studio guest, David Call, who is a Democrat running for 3rd District Magistrate. And we'll be back with David and more of our discussion after these messages. Stay tuned, please. All right, you're back with Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford with you until the top of the hour. And we've been talking with continuing our series of candidate interviews with David Call. And David is a candidate for 3rd District Magistrate on the Democratic side. And David, I should know this. Where out in the 3rd District do you live?
I live right in between Mr. Rice and Jeff Castle, who's running on the Republican side. I live right in the middle of both of them. It's about the same distance. I live on Bellwood Road. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we've been talking with David about his thoughts about being a magistrate. And David, I think small business is the lifeblood of a community.
Right.
And I think that we see that here. And as the community goes and as business goes, kind of goes the community too.
Right. I think a community it's based around small business. I know back in the 80s there was a lot of dairy farmers in this county, and each time a farmer, I think I've got this right, each time a farmer would spend $1, that dollar would go 6 times through the community. And you take small business, and I've got an idea for small business too, but I'm not going to let it out right now. but I've got an idea about small business. Like I said, my boys, they started this small business down here, and I want to see every small business do good. And that's the backbone. That's the backbone of a county. It's the backbone of a church. It's the backbone of a community.
Well, in fact, most of the businesses in the United States are small business.
Right. But, they're getting drowned out every day, too, But like I said a while ago, I like to see small business stamped, made in Nelson County. I like to see that.
Well, that's kind of an interesting idea, David, because there's a lot of things that are made here.
Right.
We've got factories manufacturing a lot of things, but that would be nice to see that.
Right. Now, I like to see it. And with the tourism tax, we've got 2 or 3 restaurants right here, Mammy's, Pat's, Susie Q's out there.
Right.
In the very beginning, the tourism tax was important for them, but what got them where they are right now is hard work.
Right.
Nobody has give them 3-0. I mean, too much that I know of, but it's hard work, and that's what I like to see. And one other thing, I'm a conservative Democrat. My niece in Washington tagged me as a blue dog Democrat, which is an older Southern Democrat politician, and I believe in family values big time. And I think all those qualities that I do have, I think that would make me a good magistrate.
All right. Well, very good. Well, we appreciate you taking time to come in and talk with us.
I appreciate y'all having me and putting up with me back there, talking to me back there.
Well, Margie, you wanted to take a minute to talk about a upcoming event.
Yes, I did. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. I'm wearing my little tag, which just fell off. Nelson County CASA, which is the Nelson County Court-appointed Special Advocates, is having a golf scramble on April the 22nd to raise money to keep these services to the abused and neglected children in Nelson County going. And so if you are interested in that, just call Miss Kate Broadus, and that number is 331-1281. 331-1281, and join us in trying to raise money for services for these abused and neglected children who are in the court system through no fault of their own.
Well, I think you could probably, for people interested, can also go on Facebook and probably find No Casa.
You can.
NELCASA.
Right, it is. And, whatever you can do to help, whether you're part of a team or helping to sponsor a team, would be very good.
Right, and it's important to note that this is money that is going to stay local.
Oh, absolutely. That money doesn't go for salaries. It doesn't go out of the county. It stays right here and is used for direct services to these children, providing mentors and services to those children.
Right, and these are these kids can't really help themselves in this.
No.
They're there by no fault of their own.
No, absolutely, and Kentucky leads the nation in the percentage of child abuse cases. So it is a ongoing problem.
Right. Well, Margie, that's going to just about do it for this Bradford and Brooks. Again, David Call, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and Margie and I will be back next Wednesday with another Bradford and Brooks. Have a great week, everybody.